Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpa coming to you from the living room in Jack's Beach. Today we're doing Matthew chapter 16. And so we're more than halfway through the book of Matthew. There's 28 chapters. There's no need for a spoiler alert. Everybody wants you to know the ending of this book. And we're getting towards that. So Jesus has now gone to the Gentiles and started to do miracles with them, and he's going to be confronted by the Pharisees, and he's going to talk about that. Then Peter's going to find out who Jesus really is, and then Jesus is going to start to tell them the ending of this story, and we'll see if they're ready to hear that yet. Your grandmother and I watch a show called Bosch. It's about some guy, detective out in Los Angeles, and he because of some fortuitous circumstances winds up with a house up in Hollywood Hills overlooking the city of Los Angeles. And when I found this website, this is called the Living Room Spaceship, I said, well, hey, this is like if Bosch lived in space, because he looks over this beautiful city at night. Sometimes he's sitting there listening to jazz music. So I imagine these spaceship people sitting there listening to jazz and having music. The music playing real soft. And I just wanted to share it with you. Now, when the Pharisees and Sadducees came to test Jesus, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. Well, you might ask, why would they ask for a sign? He's been healing people all over the place. And they're coming like, oh, we don't believe you. Give us a sign. But they're saying, we're the guys in charge. You need to prove to us that you are what you think you are, who you say you are. You need to prove it to us, and we'll let you know if you really are. He said, when evening comes, you say it will be fair weather because the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be stormy today because the sky is red and darkening. You know how to judge correctly the appearance of the sky, but you cannot evaluate the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. Then he left them and went away. And I'm not going to explain the whole thing about the sign of Jonah, but he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days, and Jesus will be in the belly of the earth for 3 days. When the disciples went to the other side, they forgot to take bread. Watch out, Jesus said to them, because of the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So they began to discuss this among themselves, saying, it is because we brought no bread. When Jesus learned of this, he said, you who have such little faith, why are you arguing among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? Don't you remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you took up? How could you not understand that I was not speaking to you about bread? But beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he had not told them to be on guard against the yeast in bread, but against the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And what yeast does, and your grandpapa is kind of an amateur baker, it makes the bread rise, it expands the bread, it makes the bread grow inside. Growing inside is usually a good thing. But if you're growing with the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees, it's not a good thing. It's evil that's growing inside you. When Jesus came to the area of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" So you're listening to people. Who do they say I am? And I've been to this area. It's at the kind of the very top of Israel, near the mouth of the Jordan River. They answered, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "You are blessed, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you release on earth will have been released in heaven." Then he instructed his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. So Peter's figured out that he's the Christ. The Catholic Church is built upon the fact that Peter supposedly is the rock. Not going to get into the whole thing. He's not. There's a giant rock, part of a face of a mountain, like a kind of a cliff, if I remember correctly when I was up there. And it's the gates of hell, it's called. The gates of Hades. It had something to do with the worship of the god Pan. I believe that's a Roman god, Pan. It's a goat god, an evil god, not a good guy. I believe he's saying he's going to build it upon the structure of religion as it was. But as I say, I'm not going to get into that whole thing. But I don't believe that it's telling Peter that, oh, you're going to be the Pope, the first Pope. So, Peter's good, right? Peter figured it out. He must be sitting there patting himself on the back and going, "Hey man, I got some good points today in front of the Lord. Let's see what happens." From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and experts of the law, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. So Peter took him aside, oh no, and began to rebuke him. So Peter, like to rebuke somebody means to tell them off, to tell them that they're wrong. Like, Jesus, what are you thinking saying this stuff? God forbid, Lord. This must not happen to you. But he turned to Peter. So we're going to find out that Jesus didn't say Peter was the rock. What's he say here? But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me because you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but on man's." Then Jesus said to his disciples, so Peter's talking to him in private, like, let me take you aside. Lord, you don't know what you're doing. He then makes that a public conversation. Says to the disciples, "If anyone wants to become my follower, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Now, they don't know anything about the cross yet, but they do know one thing, that a cross was something that the Romans used to kill people with. And that the way they did it is they publicly humiliated you. And it started from the time that you had to drag that cross out to the hill. And then they would always do it on a hill so that everybody could go past and see the person up there screaming and dying and follow the rules. It was called the Pax Romana, the Peace of Rome. And there was a lot of peace compared to other times in history and other places in the world. But this is how it was kept. You stay in line or we're going to nail you up to two boards stuck together. And we're going to make you drag that out there to the public place. So everybody knows, oh, yeah, this isn't going to turn out well for you. And he's telling them, this is what you have to do. I'm sure they're mortified. Deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what does it benefit a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his life? Or what can a person give in exchange for his life? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell you the truth, there are some standing here who will not experience death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but it sounds good to me. There's some things in the Bible that people beat like a dead horse, and they still don't know what it means. And then there's some things in the Bible that people say they know what it means and they don't. I'm going to shoot straight with you. I don't know how that works. Anyway, peace out.